Madness Monday may be joined by Max Block, Tim Langlois. Right, I pronounced it right.
Yeah.
I got it wrong at camp this summer. I need that name generator thing Jim was talking about. We got to get you in there. So, of course, we're going to break down each bracket team by team. So if you have any hesitations about filling out your bracket, you will get the answers right here. So hopefully after this, you'll be all set. We'll lead you towards a perfect bracket. So nobody in my pool better be watching this. Right, guys?
Of course.
All right, let's jump right into it. We're going to start in the South, or as ESPN mislabeled it, what they have it as, the East. I just think, ESPN, get your stuff together. They switched the South and the East. Tim printed his out last night. I printed mine out before I came here, so they've gotten it right. But there's a reason CBS carries all the games. There's Tim. All right, so let's start. We'll just move right down. Number 1, Kentucky versus the play-in between Mississippi Valley State and Western Kentucky University. Obviously, Western Kentucky, the only team in, the losing record. It would be neat to see a Kentucky versus Western Kentucky matchup. I don't think there's much to it. But let's just talk about Kentucky in this game and their chances down the line. Obviously, they are I would say they're the most talented team on raw talent in the tournament. But experience comes into question. Anthony Davis, the best player, freshman. It's a team loaded with freshmen. Is that going to hurt them later on?
You see, I see what you're saying with the raw talent. I think UNC is also a team up there, but the team with the most talent doesn't necessarily always win. I'm not arguing that they are probably the best team on paper. I think something like 40% of users on CBS have them winning it all, which is ridiculous, and everyone likes to go with the number 1 overall seed. But I really don't see them making the whole entire run. I see them getting to the Final Four, but let's be real. The selection committee gave them no breaks with this bracket. They have a potential Sweet 16 matchup with Indiana. Who's the only team to beat them during the regular season? Indiana. To have to see them in the Sweet 16, then go and see a team like Duke or Baylor or UNLV, maybe a sleeper team. All teams that have had excellent seasons.
Well, what would it be?
They've given them no way.
Inexperience, fatigue. What would be their ultimate downfall?
You know, John Calipari's had great teams the past couple of years since he's been at Kentucky. You look, last year they made the Final Four run with Brandon Knight and Terrence Jones. The year before was the John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins year, where they had a more talented team, I'll say, than the team they have this year, another number 1 seed, but they just haven't been able to get it done. Is it the experience? The fact that they start so many freshmen, 3 I think, and is it the experience? I think it definitely plays a role, but when I look across the board, there's not many experienced teams. There's a lot of young talent. With the one-and-dones nowadays, you're not going to see many teams with a lot of seniors. Will those teams be able to make a run? I think so. I think experience is a real nice intangible.
Tim, how far do you have Kentucky going?
I have Kentucky in my Final Four simply because I'm just hoping that Calipari is able to use this as motivation. But if you're looking for ammo to go against Kentucky, I think you just look at the SEC tournament. They ended up losing to Vanderbilt, and they were in close games against LSU and Florida in there. So I think people that are, like you guys are probably going against Kentucky. I kind of have them a little bit by default. I don't see anyone that's going to overtake them.
See, I have them in my Final Four, too. I think they definitely have a tough route, but I do think they'll be able to get there. I think that once they get to the Final Four, that's going to be the true test. If this young, talented team, and it's going to show teams in the future if they're able to do it, starting 3 freshmen. Are they going to be able to do it? We'll see in just a couple of weekends.
Well, of course, there's a reason they did get the number 1 seed. You can't look against them, but everybody's always picking at the best team and at the best teams. I have them out in the Sweet 16. I'm losing to Indiana, I think, just like against Vanderbilt.
Twice in a season. Wow.
They went up against a team, and they didn't do this a lot this year in the SEC. They went up against a team that's experienced. They know how to play situational basketball. Vanderbilt and Indiana, very similar teams. I think if you look at on paper, coaching-wise, experience-wise, they're very similar teams. I think Indiana could get it done again.
See, Indiana, I really like Indiana. I've liked them all season. I actually had them in their game against Kentucky all the way back up in Indiana. But on a neutral court in Kentucky will be where it is. Or actually, no, that one will be in Atlanta. But still, home court advantage for Kentucky, clearly.
And
when you're that good a team,
just saw that, yeah.
You're going to get the fans there. I think that Indiana, they lost Verdell Jones III, one of their seniors. He only scores about 8 points a game. But like I was saying, the experience, the senior leadership means a lot. They lost him to an ACL tear, unfortunately, during the Big Ten tournament. I just don't think they have enough to take over Kentucky.
But there are a couple of very interesting matchups right off the bat. You got UConn possibly against the defending national champions, and then Indiana, the team who beat them back way back early in the season. So.
And let's be honest, Indiana does not have the easiest route getting there. They're going to
Absolutely not.
If they are able to get past New Mexico State, who doesn't even have 10 losses on the season, clearly an upset-bound team. Then you look at who they'd have to play in the 5-12 matchup. That is one of the most even 5-12 matchups I think I've ever seen. I don't think one team is really 7 seeds better than the other. It's absolutely going to be a great game. I actually think VCU is going to take over Wichita State. That's one of my upsets that I have. VCU, they are just so fast. They're so quick. They steal the ball. Look what they did last year. We're talking about experience. Only 6 losses on the season, 3 in conference. They swept through, won their tournament. And when I look at their losses on the season, I just did this a second ago. They lost to Seton Hall, team that just missed the tournament, Georgia Tech and Georgia State, who are bad losses, but then Alabama, team in the tournament, Drexel, team that got snubbed from the tournament that everyone's loving to talk about, and George Mason, a pretty respectable program. They have no terrible losses, maybe without the Georgia State and Georgia Tech loss. They just have so many players that can lead. They're led by their senior, the versatile Bradford Burgess, gets 13 points a game. The team averages 11 steals a game. If they can get the ball from Wichita State and get those transition points quickly, it's going to be a real tough game for Wichita State. Not an easy first-round game for a 5 seed.
Wichita State has not played a lot of good teams, too. And I think a lot of it with VCU last year, a lot of their advantage was the coaching. Shaka Smart, I think, surprised a lot of people. I'm surprised he's still at VCU. I thought he was going to get all kinds of job offers. But before we get onto that game, or I don't know, we may have talked that game up. 8-9, Iowa State, UConn, I think is going to be a really fun game to watch. UConn, the defending champions, I think the fact they got a 9 seed is a pleasantry extended to them from the committee because they were national champions here. But Iowa State, they're giving me that vibe. And this goes way back to November when they beat Oklahoma State in football. They've been the Cinderella team in all sports all year. I got to say, I'm digging the Cyclones. This is their year. They had some big wins in their conference earlier in the year.
Of course.
I'm getting a good vibe, though. Of course, I'm not saying they're going to beat Kentucky, but I think they'll beat UConn. Not that it'll matter in the grand scheme of things. I think whoever plays that game is doomed to lose to Kentucky. I do know some people who actually have UConn beating Kentucky, but
of course, you'll get that when you're in New England.
The whole point of this is to have fun watching the competitive basketball games. And if you do March Madness more so to watch the games than for the bracket, you want to make sure you're watching this game.
And that game Thursday night, it's definitely going to be a great game. I think Iowa State is the better team, but I think that UConn's going to win it for a couple of reasons. I keep going with the intangibles, and you might think that doesn't matter, but
that's the kind of thing you have to do in these tournaments.
Which team knows what they have to do, has been here before, which coach has been here before, has won a championship, let's say last year and then a couple in the past. Jim Calhoun, he is a national championship contending coach. Iowa State, they don't have the players who have been here before. They don't have the coaching that's made these runs before. I think Iowa State's the better team, but it's that first-round jitters, and I really think that UConn's going to be able to put together a first-round win. Do I think they'll beat Kentucky second round? Absolutely not. The inside presence on Kentucky, there's no way that UConn's big men can contend with Kentucky.
Tim, who do you have there?
I have UConn, but I would be shocked if this game doesn't go down to the wire. This one just screams that it's going to go right down to the wire. I have UConn basically because of what they did in the conference tournament, and they won it all last year. I think the experience, like you said, is you have to go with that because Iowa State lost early in their tournament, so I got UConn in that one.
All right, so we already touched on Wichita State VCU, but let's just say you said you had VCU.
Yep.
Who did you have in that game?
I have Wichita State actually. I don't think VCU as good as they are last year.
But one thing I will bring up about Wichita State, I need to give them credit too, because I gave VCU the credit on all their losses being pretty decent losses. Wichita State lost to Alabama, tournament team. Temple in overtime, tournament team. Creighton, they lost at home, but then won at Creighton's place. So sort of evened out with there. Creighton, another tournament team that we have to watch out for. Yep. Then they lost in triple overtime to Drake. If you're going to lose in triple overtime, bravo. I'm not going to count that as that bad a loss. Obviously, Drake is not a great team, but triple overtime, what are you going to do about it?
It shows your ability
exactly.
to
and then Illinois State. The one person on this Wichita State team that I think can make a difference, the big man, the senior, Garrett Stutz, 7 foot. There are not many 7-footers, true 7-footers in college basketball. He gets 13 points, rips down 8 rebounds a game. If VCU cannot contend with him, because VCU is guard-based, you look at Wichita State, they're a bigger team. If VCU can't shut him down inside, he could be a nightmare for the Rams.
All right, so let's keep going. We already touched on Indiana a little bit. Indiana, New Mexico State. Another one of these Mountain West teams, and we were talking earlier. I don't think I'm not that big on the Mountain West this year. I think it's a weak conference. A lot of these teams just because they got out to hot starts. There were a lot of teams like that this year. Ohio State's another one that comes to mind. They played very well at the beginning of the season. Towards the end, they kind of faded away. I have Indiana going far in this one. I think it's going to be a good game to watch, but I don't think New Mexico State has the ability to pull this one off.
And they just don't have the firepower. You look at Indiana; they've won big games. When it's come down to the wire, they know how to pull it out. And Indiana, they love to play at home. They don't really like playing anywhere else. But I think that on a neutral court against New Mexico State, they should be able to get their business done.
And they keep going back. You have to keep going back to that game against Kentucky when you talk about Indiana.
It's a long time ago.
That shows a lot about the team. And actually, if oh no, that's a different one. The one below that's actually in New Mexico. But this isn't. So, Tim, what do you have in that game?
I got Indiana. I don't know. Like you said, the Mountain West is down this year. I just have to take Indiana by default. They got to go back to all the way to Kentucky early in the season.
So then looking at the matchup that we've all sort of set up in the second round, Indiana versus, a couple of us said Wichita State or VCU. Is Indiana going to be able to beat either of those teams, or can one of them pose a threat and make a Sweet 16 run?
I like Indiana. Again, I love that experience. I think when it comes to this time of the year, you look at Butler, I think a lot of the reason they got so far last year is because they had done it the year before. They had a lot of those returning players. You got to go with the intangibles in something like this. Anytime you're playing a lot of games in a short period, whatever sport it is, it all comes down to the mental toughness of a team. And I think the more you've played the game at any level, as you take a look at the bracket right there, the better you'll do. Just once again, I want to tease, if you want to call in, if you have any questions about your bracket, comments about what we're saying, 508-202-4779 or YBA Talk on Skype. Once again, 508-202-4779. So back to that game, Tim, is Indiana going to be able to beat VCU or, is Indiana going to be able to beat Wichita State? Oh, yeah, or VCU.
Yeah, I have Wichita State, so I have Indiana going against Kentucky, which is, again, an interesting match.
Sets up a nice rematch there.
Yeah, it certainly does. I don't see VCU or Wichita
So
State
UK or IU? UK or IU? Making the Elite Eight run from the top left.
It's going to have to be Kentucky. I don't see Indiana. Kentucky's just been too good all season long. And, again, they're going to have to use maybe his motivation when they lost to Vanderbilt. It's going to have to somehow propel them. That's my thinking on that one.
Yeah. What about you, Alex?
I like Indiana. Like I said at the top of the show, they lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Indiana. What do these teams have in common? They have experience. They play disciplined basketball. They play smart basketball. They play situational basketball.
Is that an upset for you, or do you is that one of the upsets you had to work into your bracket to even it out? Or do you truly think Indiana is the better team in that game?
Like we've been saying, Kentucky's the most talented team, but it's not all talent. It's coaching. It's experience. It's fatigue, there's a lot, and also momentum, they're coming off a loss.
Yep.
They will have to win to play Indiana, but a team that doesn't lose that much, it makes each loss hurt that much more.
That's true.
They're essentially coming off a loss in a game they probably should have won. Vanderbilt, although a very good team, not even ranked when they lost to them.
I have Kentucky just going over Indiana. I think that Calipari's too good a coach to lose twice to the same exact team. I think Kentucky's matured throughout the season. You had 18 and 19-year-olds back when they played in November, 18 and 19-year-olds who were about 10 games into their college career. Now you have those same kids a couple months later who are 30 games into their college career. They're 32-2. They know how to win. I think Indiana can stick with them. Their firepower will keep them in any game. But do I think they're going to be able to pull off another upset? Not unless the three-point ball is falling all over the place, which, to be fair, it has been in some certain games. But I think Kentucky, their offense is just too unstoppable.
I would have
to
imagine that if you're picking Indiana, you're basing a lot off that Michigan State win they had a couple weeks ago when they won by 15.
They've won big games.
Because before that, though, they really hadn't come through when they were tested. They lost by 15, Michigan State. And they lost by 17 to Ohio State, and they lost by 12 at Michigan.
But just looking at this, if you look earlier in the season,
it's kind of like going to be a road game for them.
And it's very interesting because they beat Ohio State, they beat Michigan State at home, and as you were saying, they got blown out on the road. Obviously, there's no home team in these games, but they're not really too comfortable outside of Assembly Hall.
All right, so let's keep moving down now.